Welcome to the Val Valley Model Railroad update number 10. This is our Christmas update, and I must apologize. It's been quite a while since we've had an update. I'll just say that our family has been challenged with things that naturally come in life, and as we are taking them on, it has certainly eaten up a lot of our time. So, we'll take a look at some of the new great things going on here on the Model Railroad. Again, this is the Val Valley, a fictitious subdivision of the Norfolk Southern. And before we get too much started, I wanted to thank all the new subscribers. I've been seeing people subscribe to the channel left and right, and thinking I should be getting a new update out for them. I do apologize again. Like I said, life's thrown us a few curveballs, and we are currently dealing with them, or they are dealing with us, depending upon how we look at it. So, without any more to do, let's take a look at some of the new things on the layout. We got a couple of things, not as many as usual, so this should be a little shorter than our normal updates. So we'll take a look at Sutton, which, for those of you who know Sutton, that's this the end of the branch line here, this long coal yard here. And yep, indeed it says Sutton, and this is the section that we're focusing on. As you can see, we have some junk that will soon be rotting in the weeds and a road winding through it. This section of the layout has been under debate for a little while. A while ago I posted trying to find out what our viewership thought we should do with this. Originally I was going to have a little siding there with some maintenance equipment rusting, and they thought maybe that was too much. There's too much trains in the area. And after a lot of thought, I came to agree with it. So what we have here are some 3D printed items in my junkyard that I've made. We have an excavator. There's a big bucket there from a drag line. We have a winch, another bucket, and one of my favorites are these two old style crane. Here's probably one of the first diesels that would have come out, or gas powered crane. And over here we have the steam shovel. Yes, indeed, inspired by Mike Mulligan. These are 3D printed. And if you look at them they look kind of ratty. And I kind of turned down the printer settings so they would look ratty. I wanted them to look like they've been rusting for a long time. Not just paint them, but the feel and the texture. Kind of think we got that good. Got a giant hit and miss motor, a couple of tanks. What's left of a truck back there, or trailer back there. Might add some more junk, but again, it's going to be a road winding through them here near the coal tipple in the coal fields, and lots of weeds. Kind of like this stuff's been left out in the forgotten forever in God's nowhere country. Alright, so we're going to move on down. Technically we should go the other way. I'm going to move on down the branch line. I'm going to follow the branch line so you can kind of get an idea where we're going. Alright, so this is next town, Wilson. We're going to bypass Wilson. We'll be back to that in a little bit. And you'll notice that my lift bridges are up. We're going to take a look at Wilson, which is up here. Normally the tracks come through here on the branch line, and this, we'll put this one down just for show and tell. And it's usually a two-hand job. But this is how the branch line comes across the main doorway. And this is our focus here for the next. This is Sycamoose, or soon will be Sycamoose. Sycamoose is supposed to be somewhere out in the boondocks, a real country or rural feel. I mean, so far out that maybe not many people visit it except for the inhabitants of maybe a couple squirrels and a bear or two. But where it ducks underneath the upper level, I have started some of the scenery. Here we have a 3D printed porthole, and again, like a lot of my 3D stuff, we'll be offering it on our website, Phantom Hobbies. If you want to know more about Phantom Hobbies or how to get this modular system, drop me a line and we'll tell you more about it. These, like I said, are modular. The porthole's one piece, the walls are separate piece, wing wall, and then you have a I can't remember what degree angle that was made, especially for this scene. And we have another one here in the wing wall. And there's also a tunnel liner, which didn't show up very well, but that was the idea. It has brick detailed in it, and you can get that in lengths. the idea is the system is modular, so it can be put together. They have little tabs that fit behind the next piece and so forth. So you can pick and choose the parts you want. This will be available soon on eBay. I have a few things to straighten out. Actually, I'm waiting for more plastic to arrive. So I've just been printing orders as they come in and not doing any more developing of my product. But as you can see, we've created a little land over the tunnel. We can take a little picture of how that was done. It has cardboard strips in like a web, and paper mache, regular brown bag that we got from Harbor Freight the other day. Made great paper mache backing. And then I used Sculptamold over top it, which is really a form of paper mache, to give it the land. And then I left a big fan on it for 2 days drying. This is where a bridge would have come out across whatever caverns here. Actually we have the lower yard, but as far as the upper level is concerned, this would have been a bridge leading away from the mine. So eventually the road will be continued here, and there will be some Jersey barriers here. I have yet to figure out exactly how to handle the land here, mainly because I need a electric uncoupler here. And the KD one doesn't quite fit there, but I'm exploring other options. So if anybody's got a great idea for an electric magnetic uncoupler, let me know. We could use your help. And then eventually, once we get that installed, I'm going to figure out how to handle this land here, where the tunnel disappears. So, and this is also part of the 3D kit that I have been working on. This is a wall with 2 ends on it, and usually a wall just has one end like this and then a female end. In fact, I made this one removable, and I kind of back up here a little bit because that is actually the attic door, and things that cross the doorway had to be made removable so that we can get up there, or the wife would kill me. Not that I really wanted to ever go up there again, but seeing as she likes to store stuff. So, but like I said, this is removable, and this is 3 pieces glued together. You've got a wall section, and you've got an angle piece, and then the wing wall. And they fit together. Now, the tunnel faces like this that we'll be offering are a little wider than this one. This one, you can see, if we look at the nameplates here, it was cut down severely to fit this area. So the ones that we'll be offering will be full width, kind of like from here to here. So, but they look pretty good. I painted them and weathered them with several washes of paint mixed with water to make a wash. And when I got done, they were a little dark. So I took the same gray spray paint I used to originally paint them and just did a mist, and they lightened up really nice. And the same for the bridge abutment here. It actually extends quite a ways into the bank, but I wasn't sure how that bank would turn out. So that's the project so far in Sycamoose. Alright, we're looking back at Wallace Junction again. We were just over here at Sycamoose, and Wallace Junction is down on the lowest level on the main line. And we had a little problem here with our pond at Wallace Junction, so we'll go take a look at that. Okay, we had a problem this summer. As you saw earlier when the video first started, this is my lift bridge, and it starts about there. You can kind of see the crack there. And the whole thing, it's quite large, runs all the way over, and the hinge is buried here in the weeds. Yeah, I know someone's going to come up with the idea that those hinges should be hidden better, but they're there. In any case, I had it up like you saw when the video first started. Apparently when some of the hottest days in the summer had hit, because the resin that I poured my lake out of, the top layer, I used 2 different resins here. The top layer is that water from Woodland Scenic. I started with something called magic water on the bottom. You had to mix it in the resin, and you could only pour it so much at a time. I think I got like 8 or 9 levels here. You're really hard to tell the difference between, you can't see the difference between the resins at all. And it's kind of I love it. It's pretty. I wish I had more space to do. I'd like to do some rapids in a running river if I could, but don't have the space. But anyway, what happened in the hottest part of summer here with the lift bridge all the way up, it seemed to melt and things literally moved. For instance, this boat used to be like over here. And to give you an idea, we're going to look at these waves here. This wave run here and this one were against this shore. So they moved probably a whole inch or better. I had to add more waves to hide everything that moved. We had to break out a hot gun, or heat gun, which I couldn't find, so I borrowed my daughter's hair dryer. And I had to heat the area around these boats. Now this one's still kind of got a funny thing going here. It looks like they're going faster than they are now. But it was really sideways and looked like it was in danger of being swamped. But it took me quite a while with a hot hair dryer blowing at full throttle to heat this up enough to get the boats rescued. The other boat had moved as well, and I got him pretty well straightened out. And there was some damage along the shore here where you can kind of see some folds. They now look like waves, so we added a little more. I used Woodland Scenic Water Effects to add the waves. This isn't so much of a clear stuff. It looks more like Elmer's glue when it comes out compared to their water. But in any case, so I added some waves. We had 2 giant bubbles. We had one here inside the dock and one on that side where a lot had collected. So we had to pop those, and then I added a bunch of the water effects on top of that, trying to make things look right again. Now we also added some deer while we were at it. The deer here are new to the layout. And there's another lone deer over here. And as always, my fish are still here. But even, oddly enough, even they kind of, hard to get the glint from the water out, even they kind of moved around. For instance, these fish here were nowhere near their current location. It's hard to see them underneath the waves there. There we go. Now you can see the 3 or 4 fishies. They were out farther, and for some reason they went over there. So for those of you who have used Woodland Scenic's water effects and water, don't lean your boards up if it gets real hot. They might tend to settle a little bit or flow a little bit. And that was quite a bummer. It took quite a while to fix. I was really upset at first when this happened. But I'm happy we got it all fixed and looking nice. So we'll take a real quick look around Wallace Junction here. We got some campers. They've been here before, but for those of you who haven't seen it, my scratch-built dock. And then we've got the Bessemer's Crossing here with our Norfolk Southern layout. This is the Bessemer station. Rusty rails, waiting for a train, and this poor gentleman who's hiking down the tracks may have a problem if that train ever comes. Our vast parking lot, a couple trees, and a couple automobiles here at the station. Okay, we're going to address 2 new engines. I probably won't have a lot of new engines after this. It's a small layout, and I've pretty much acquired most of the ones I've wanted. This is a set of SD40s that I detailed and weathered. I added air brakes, snow plows to each one. Number 3411 was the first one I got. And number 3430 is our newest. 3430, it's kind of interesting. She's a sound unit, which is nice, but you'll notice that the number boards are black instead of white on this one. And if we scoot down to the other engine, you'll notice that they're white. And also I've noticed there's a difference. The cab seems to light in 3411, lights up yellow, and in 3430, even when they're going that direction and the headlight comes on, the cab does not light. The interesting thing is they're both SD40s-2s from Bachmann. Yeah, I know, Bachmann, right? Out of the box, the first one, 3411, with the lighting situation there, I bought him used for 60 bucks on eBay. I took a chance. Got it home, it ran like poop. And after spending a little bit of time with JMRI, it turned out to be a sweet running locomotive. I thought maybe the engine was partially burned out. I have another one where I was able to make through JMRI, program the decoder and make it run reasonably well. Well, this one runs kind of like an Atlas. I'm really happy with it. This one, the sound unit, I purchased brand spanking new and had the exact same thing. You had to turn the throttle way up to get it to even move, and it just was not a happy thing. However, after playing with it for a little while and running it through JMRI, these engines run sweet. They're my second favorite set of engines on the layout, I dare say. I was just really happy with the way they turned out. Certainly weathered up nice, maybe a little more than most Norfolk Southern people would like. NS usually does not let their engines get this dirty and grimy. I like my engines to look a little grimy. Now that we got the switch lined up, we'll bring them back and we can have a look at them. As you can see, there's just no sound but the engines themselves. I swear, these things run like Atlases. Alright, our next update takes place in both Stillwater and the town of Wilson on the second level. As some of you know, I have built my own signaling system and then rebuilt it For those of you who don't know, it functions on Arduinos and relays. And this is the master control panel for the main line, the double main line. The branch line's hidden around the corner, but it's about the same size. And if you excuse the rat's nest. But what's new now is we have added 3 crossing gates. Well, 3 crossings. There's a gate here. There's a gate across the way, which seems to be stuck down. For some reason, that one tends to stick once in a great while. There, he's unstuck. And if we come over here, there's a set right here, front and back. And if we go up to Wilson, the third set is here. So we'll talk about the crossing gates just a little bit before we go too far. The crossing signal itself, this part here, you'll notice that they're in 2 pieces. Now, that's typical of an older railroad that originally installed the gates and then added, or installed the crossing signal, and gates were added later, and they haven't been replaced. I wanted that feeling that my railroad was older and had been around a while before Norfolk Southern took it over, so this is one of the ways trying to give that old time or older railroad charm. But in any case, in real life, the crossing signal itself is one of the cheap ones you see on online for I can't remember how much they are. They're from China. They're really cheap. The only thing that's different about these is you have to pay attention. In most cases here in the U.S., we use a positive common, which is technically wrong when you really, those of you who are electricians and know about these sort of things. There are some advantations to doing a negative common, which is kind of safer in the long run. For us here in the U.S., we got stuck with this, and it does go back to our 12-volt electrical systems originally in the older cars, when cars first started getting electrical systems. So we've been stuck with it for a while. The crossing gates themselves, these came from Lifelike, you know, where the train runs through. I don't have the thing anymore, but it's got a big piece of plastic that has the road leading up to it, and it has these little gates, and as soon as the train hits it, which means it's right on top of the tracks, it pushes down on the center of the track, and the lever underneath pushes the gate down. Well, I use these same gates, and on, let's see here, the sets down here, I was able to use the poles. Nowadays, the crossing lights itself plug in the top. I could have used them, but I didn't want to drill through and put LEDs, and then I had to get the wires past the gate, and that was enough trouble. So what we have is underneath, if I put this down, you can see this little wire here, this guy. That is a piece of piano wire that goes down underneath the table and connects to a servo. Now the servos I used are 9 milligram, or 9 gram, I think it is they call them. But they're used like in model airplanes and so forth. And we can see the servos up here under Wilson. That's this upper level here. Real well. We go under here, and I got some better pictures of them. But those are basically servos. Okay. So now we'll go back here and finish our little discussion about these critters. So the servo lowers them, the gates, and it was important to have the regular traffic signals for the, well, train control signals, block detection and so forth in before you add these, because these are kind of an added to it. Because my blocks are kind of long, it takes the train a while. It seems like they go down the appropriate amount of time before the train gets there when you're watching them. But it seems like they last forever before they go back up. It's actually the same amount of time. In real life, we're used to the caboose clearing the crossing, the gates going up as soon as it clears. That is something I'm working on. I have a couple ideas on that. I'm also going to add a set of buttons out here. So there's a lot of time, because my layout's small, I end up parking a freight train with the nose of it here, and that would hold down the gates. So I'm going to have a switch to bypass a specific track. This, one of the 4 tracks that are coming into the crossing area, so that the train doesn't hold the gates down all the time. And that will come in handy when someone's switching the sidings here, because they are tied into the main line over there. Or I could put separate track power so it's not on the main line block. that would help too. But it's also nice if the train approaches on the siding here that these gates go down. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little look at the gates in actual action. I will forewarn you, they do a little bit of a karate chop, and that's because of the servos. I could have gone with tortoise switch machines, which work really well, and they have a nice slow. Sometimes they're too slow. The last set I did for another model railroad I had, the gates would get down just as the train got there, and the trigger tracks were quite long. These are 3 foot in advance. As soon as the train gets within 3 foot of either side of the crossing set, the gates go down. But the other reason I used servos was because of the price. I picked up, I think it was 10 servos for 20 bucks on eBay, whereas I needed 6 of them to finish this project. So that means if I went with tortoise switch machines, I would have needed 6 altogether, and that was like around 150 bucks. Being that money was pretty tight at the time, I elected to go with the servos. So we're going to go take a look at these gates in operation, and then we're going to come back and look at the electronics to them. Okay, so we've taken a quick look at the gates in operation, both the upper and the lower. And now we'll go take a look at, first we're going to look at trigger tracks, because I think that's kind of important to mention. In these you kind of base the length of the trigger track, that's the distance away from the crossing that the train starts the gates and lights to flash and the gates to go down. That is partially based on how fast you run your trains. I've seen people on YouTube, for some reason this makes me shudder, they run them in full throttle on the power pack or the throttle, and I like them kind of slow and realistic. I want to enjoy my train as it goes by. I'm not looking to win any races, but so that will affect how long of a track you need. I have 3 feet, and that means that the blocks technically start the middle of, or at this crossing, and they run all the way around this curve. You'll see right here at the joints, you'll see the little yellow markers on the rail. That marks the gap for the crossing signals. Now, I did kind of cheap. Those gaps were already there because of the lift bridge, and I measured it and timed it, and it just happened to work really well. On the other side, they're a little longer because I've got like 2 foot of straightaway before we go into the curve. But it's real hard to see. There's a car on it. Underneath there, I don't know if you can see it underneath that car, there's little yellow marks for the rail that show the gap. Now, so technically what we have is the block signal system watches the section of track and controls the block signals like these. And then the block itself is further divided into smaller sections that the crossing detection system watches. Now, the electronics I happen to hide underneath Wallace Junction. My back, as bad as it is, I didn't want to be crawling down the panels along the floor, and I'm actually running out of room too. So what I'm doing here is lifting up the Wallace Junction. Excuse my wiring mess, but this is essentially my signaling system, or the crossing controls. In fact, this one is the branch line on the upper deck, and this one runs the lower. And you'll notice these are Arduino Unos. I have a bank of 8 relays, and these are NCE BD20 block detectors, and they're fairly simple. I like them because this says they're $14.95. I got a bunch of them together, and I paid a whole lot less than that. And essentially, what it is this is my track power. It goes through the sensor and back out to the rail. And that's one side or one leg of the rail. And when it sees current flow through here, this little guy sends a signal to the Arduino, who then first turns on, in this case it's relay 6, that puts power to the servos. Now, one thing I learned about the servos is they chatter real bad if they're left with power on all the time. So I have a relay, and I've used them in my full-scale R2D2 that I've built. And the servos tend to burn out over time. So the idea is we only have power on the servo when the gates are about to be moved. So as soon as the power comes on, this relay turns on, giving power to the servo. This then lowers the gates by controlling the servo and starts to alternate between these 2 relays. And that makes my lights flash. Now, technically, if you had a set of signals, crossing signals, that were made here in the US and use positive common, you couldn't need these 2 relays. You could actually drive the flashing LEDs with the Arduino, and you wouldn't get the annoying click click. Now we're going to see if I can trip the. There it goes. I got my fingers across the rails, and you can see now that the power relay, which is the one that's lit solid, giving power to the crossing gate or the servos, and you can see the wigwag going on as relay each opens and clicks. The clicking drives me kind of insane, and there you can see the crossing gates. And then as soon as I take my fingers off the rail, it closes and you can hear the gates go up. Now, one thing I want to mention, because these are quite sensitive, you want to use shielded cable for most of your runs. Okay, it's hard to see. Let's get this. Okay, there you can see it. This is the cable I use, and you can see it's got that copper shielded cable strand so that are twisted together. I usually cut that off. Sometimes people use that for an extra conductor in there, but I usually don't. And you want that shield because what will happen is if two wires are close to each other, we'll say kind of like here where these two cables are real close to each other, and it's got to be for a little more distance than this, but we'll say we get two wires from two different blocks that run together like this for 3 feet or so. One will generate enough magnetism to create a false current in the other circuit. I had a lot of problem with that when I first installed my block signals, and that was one of the reasons why I had said a while ago that I was going to start selling my block system. Well, I have decided that I'm going to turn it into a series of videos of how to do, and it's going to be free to everybody. I can't see me soldering these things together and selling them, but I can help people build signal systems. And again, we'll just play with tripping it. So I'm going to go over here. This is the length before the upper. I'm going to take my 2 fingers and rub them on the rails. I got to push kind of hard here. There they go. They went down. Release. Fingers off. Fingers on. So they're sensitive enough. I'm not getting a shock, but the current's going through my hand enough that the block detector, and you can see him here, he's lit. And again, there's the relays going back and forth. And watch, as soon as I take my fingers off, the light here on the block detector will go out. Okay, so now you'll notice that there are 2 block detectors. This is the one for the upper branch. There's one for the east side of the crossing and one for the west side. And then you divide it in the middle. And this one I kind of cheated, and I may end up paying for this down the road. Now you got to remember, our main lines down here are dual tracked. So what I did is, again, I have an east side and a west side, but you'll notice there's 2 sets of track wires going through each detector. Now you're not going to get more than 2 wires to them little loops, and the instructions that NCE gives you tells you to be careful putting wires through there. You could damage it. Want to be careful how many wires we stuff through here. These are kind of fragile. And to mount mine, I just hot glued them to the board. I did use screws to mount my Arduinos, but the detectors are just mounted. And I use these detectors for my main signal system. And again, there will be a thing coming out shortly on how the signal system itself works, so that you yourself can add signals to your model railroad. Like I said, they're going to be free. We're not going to sell them like we originally thought. We're just going to post a how-to video. And the how-to video is going to have everything from start, right from scratch. We're going to show you how to build a power supply. One of the reasons we're going to show the power supply is because with these type of signals, Arduinos all need to have, basically they want the current to be flavored all the same for them. They do share a common and in a funny way. So if you have 2 different power supplies feeding, say, a set of Arduinos here and a set over yonder, and you want them to work together, or this one to trigger that one, if they don't come from the same power supply, they don't always play nice together. So I'm going to show you how to build a power supply out of stuff you probably already have at home. Almost every house has one of these, or has had them laying around. Maybe you got rid of yours already, but that'll be coming up soon. And we'll also be having, in a couple of weeks or a week or so, I will be doing a state of the layout tour where we're going to tour the entire layout and briefly cover all the changes real quickly that we've made throughout the year. So I thank you for joining me and viewing our videos. I want to thank the new listeners, listen to me, my tongue's screwed up. Thank you for watching, and hope you all have had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year coming.